Well, my name is Wangari Munyeri. On Instagram, I'm known as Wangari Queen of the Pit. So what happens is, for me, I've always loved food generally, and then good food as well. So I started it because I wanted to find a way of making good food at home with family and friends without necessarily keeping on going out. Before I was doing meat, I was doing a lot of baking, so I wasn't doing that much of meat. But then when I started getting into meat, again, very few ladies do it because it's tough work, it's dirty work, definitely. You know, you have to keep your nails short and everything because it's coal, it's wood, it's everything. So you have to be passionate about it. You have to be passionate about the craft, about the time it takes, because like I was saying, sometimes we'll do 26, 28-hour smokes. And you know, breathing in the smoke and getting it into your hair and everything else. It's not something that everyone can do, but the end results are amazing. The satisfaction you get from even people just enjoying the meats and everything, and even sharing the craft. I have two favorite proteins to work with. Chicken. Chicken is good because it's easy, it's versatile. If you've brined it for 24 hours, then you're good to go. So chicken does very well, and it also cooks very fast. Another meat, my second favorite meat, I would say, is pork. Here is why. Pork carries flavors very well. So today I'm going to cook chicken, and what I did with the chicken was I marinated it overnight, and my go-to marinade for chicken is buttermilk. So buttermilk and some added vinegar, so that cuts down a bit of the toughness of the meat. Then the rub I have is one I curated myself. So it has paprika, it has cayenne pepper, it has rosemary leaves that we blend ourselves. And then it has a bit of Berber sauce, Berber spice from Ethiopia, because that gives it a fantastic taste and color as well. So what I do with that in the barbecue jiko is I roast it side up. The advantage of using the Cookswell jikos is you don't need to turn your meat because it works as a convection oven. So once you put it on, the heat goes all around. So you don't need to turn it at any one point in time. And it'll be good to go in an hour and a half. And it stays, because I've brined it overnight, then it stays tender throughout.
So my name's Karanja Diemo, better known as Katie. My journey, I'd say, for cooking, not barbecue, started way back. Growing up, we had cooking duties, and we needed to cook for 10 plus people. We always had people in the house, so that's where we started experimenting with different foods and spices and that sort of thing. So I think it just grew from there, because we always wanted to make the meal interesting, not just have the same thing over and over. When I got introduced to the UDS, which is the ugly drum smoker, it's also sparked something in me, because the ugly drums, the UDS basically is an oven, but it's got some very interesting properties. It uses very little charcoal, and you can sustain long cooks. You can do 10 hours, even 15 hours. The highest number I've cooked for is probably something between 90 and 100. And I wasn't by myself, I had help. But that's probably the largest number. Most of my events are somewhere between 50 and 80. But again, with number comes challenges. Scale is of course one, and how quickly you can churn out food. So of course the challenge is you have to think about all the age groups. So usually you'll have anything from toddlers to, I think the eldest I've had was an 80-something-year-old. So you have to think about what you're cooking for a toddler and for someone who's 80 plus years. So that's I think one of the things that not really I call it a challenge, because it just makes you think through your meals and how you prepare them.
So my name is Sam Shege. I'm a pit master, and I've been doing barbecue for, say, the last 14-15 years. But I grew up doing barbecue with my grandfather, my uncles, my father and his friends. And But somewhere around 2010, 2011, someone suggested that I should be paid for my barbecue. And so I looked into it and ventured into it. And around 2012, I have a friend who was getting married to a Danish guy. And I told her my wedding gift to her would be the evening barbecue. So I did it, got a lot of clients from there, and the rest is history. The meat I'm most passionate about is pork. I love to cook pork. I found new marinades that I've experimented with for chicken, so I'm loving chicken too. But pork, I love pork. I love to cook pork. So when it comes to marinating meat, I prefer, for pork especially, I prefer to do a dry rub. And I'll let the dry rub sit, if I'm doing ribs, to sit on the ribs and sweat out, say for maybe an hour, 2 hours. Then when it sweats, it's going to soak in, absorb the flavor. We also do wet marinades, and most of the times that will involve goat meat. We brine it in garlic, salt, and any other flavor that you want. So most of the cooking will happen in the Cookswell jiggles. They're like an oven, but the jiggles, and we also use them as smokers. So other than for beef, we have a Weber to do the beef, but the rest of the stuff is going to happen in the Cookswells. And I love Cookswell jiggles because I don't think there's anything like it when it comes to cooking meat. It holds temp, cooks meat perfectly. However you want to do your meat, you want to do it quickly, you want to do it slowly, you want to do it smoked, they got you.
In terms of how I prepared my meat, I did a wet marinade. The wet was from orange juice, so I mixed my spices in orange juice. I also added a bit of apple cider vinegar just to give it a bit of tangy, and it helps with keeping it moist. That wet marinade also has a brining effect because they had salt, so that allows the spices to seep into the meat. We've also done a dry rub for some of the meat, so still again we kept some of the pork ribs that we've done a dry rub with. In terms of the preparation, I know most times for us we use the word roasting or grilling meat to mean a variety, to mean the same thing, but many times actually those are a variety of techniques. So most of what we've cooked today has been roasted and smoked, either roasted, smoked, which would be more or less the same thing, just depends on the temperature. Where we've used charcoal and used more or less charcoal ovens, the Cookswell one, that uses convection cooking. That allows the meat to cook slowly. So typically I would start it on high to sear the meat, which locks in the juices and keeps the meat tender. So even if I'm doing a whole leg of lamb, I would not have to cut into it. You let that cook slowly over time. But we've also had open grilling of some of the cuts, so they're slightly smaller. So for instance, when I did the liver, I did that on an open grill because you want that high and fast. When you're doing goat can be tricky. If it doesn't have sufficient fat, it can be tough and chewy. So trying to get good quality beef sometimes is a challenge. Chicken is a lot easier, and because most times it will pick the flavor. So especially if you're doing some of this broiler chicken, for me I find that having a good rub marinade is important because the chicken itself is not as flavorful. I find dopa is very easy, so especially if you're buying it on the Kajiado side, Ngong, Piserian, Matasia, they are very well fed in terms they eat good natural things, so the flavor profile would be good. In terms of my final reflections, as someone who got their love for barbecuing with my dad, that's something we did, and where you graduated from lighting the fire, being allowed to handle some of the meat, helping the preparation, to one day being the one who was fully in charge of the meat. One thing I would want us to do a lot more of is get more people cooking themselves. I know maybe when you see people like us who have been doing it, it's possible to think it's very difficult, but actually if you understand the heat, time and so on, it's not that difficult. So one, I wish more people can take up barbecuing. And it's for that reason that a number of us have come together, and every other quarter under the Barbecue Pitmasters Kenya, we are celebrating this art, this culture, this tradition of barbecuing, smoking, grilling meat, and trying to introduce that to as many Kenyans as possible. And we do it in an event where you can sit with your friends, they can come for the event, but they also participate. Because we really hope that we can perpetuate this thing. And with that, we can also learn how we did it here in Kenya, what kind of charcoal people used, and so on.